Hello and a huge welcome to this video. I'm Scorpion from How To Do, and in this video we will be learning how to make a really cool FPS game inside of Unity, kind of like Counter-Strike. So we're gonna make it from scratch. So yeah, let's get started. Now the first thing that we need to do is we need to make an FPS controller in order to make the FPS game. Now you can do that by making the FPS controller by yourself. But that will take a little more time and more effort. However, you can use an FPS controller that Unity provides you. It is included in the standard assets. If you don't know where the standard assets are or how to download it, well, let me just quickly show you guys where to download it or how to get it. If you have downloaded Unity properly, then you should have the standard assets. For example, if you go to assets and go to import package, there you will find some options over here. These all will be standard assets. However, I don't have it right now, and some of you also won't have them right now. Some of you those have Unity 2018 or 2019, because Unity has removed standard assets from Unity 2018 and 2019. I don't know why. But if you don't have Unity 2018 or 2019, which means you have Unity 2017 or Unity 5 or somewhere, and then you will see the standard assets over here, and there will be one option called characters, and you can just select the characters and just download import it inside of Unity. The other way to do it is by going to window and going to asset store, and I don't know where it is. Asset store, there we go. If you go to asset store, and there you will search for standard assets. Search for standard assets. Okay, standard assets, and there we go. This is the standard assets. So you can just click this and download that. I already have downloaded it. It's free. So just download and then say import, and then it will import or open up the import window, and from there you will choose what asset do you want. In our case, we want an FPS controller, right? So I already have downloaded and imported the standard assets right over here, but I'm gonna show you guys what do you need. Right, so when it decompresses, it will show us a window so that we can select what do we want. All right, and here it comes. 3, 2, 1, go. There we go. So we have some things over here, but one is sample scenes and one is standard assets. We don't need the sample scenes right now. We only just need standard assets. In there we have loads of standard assets, and there are different categories. There we go. Okay, so there are 2D characters, there are cameras, there are characters, there are cross-platform inputs, editor, effects, environment, and all that, and there are also vehicles. All right, the ones you need to check is you have to say none. All right, and then you have to select the characters, and in the characters you have to only select the FPS character. All right, I already have imported it, so it's not gonna select it, but you have to select the first person character. Next up, you have to select the cross-platform input. I already have imported it, it's not selecting it. And then the third thing you need is a utility. All right, just click the utility, and if you want, you can also import the prototyping, which means you can have some blocks and things to make the map. So if you want, you can also import prototyping. Otherwise, you have to import utility, cross-platform input, and the first person character. All right, and hit import, and it's gonna import it. I already have done that. So when you import it, it's gonna make this folder over here called standard assets. If you double click that, there will be all the things that you have just imported. So I have imported characters, cross-platform input, prototyping, and utility. In the characters, you will find the first person character. Double click that, and there will be a prefab folder. In the prefab folder, you will find the rigid body FPS controller. All right, so if you just go ahead and drag this inside of your hierarchy, you will see that it is kind of like a capsule thing with the camera over here, and yeah, it will work. All right, next thing is the prototyping. So if I go to prototyping and go to prefabs, you will see that there are these blocks and floor and the kind of a house thingy and some stairs and a ramp, and yeah, all these. So that this will help you to make the your map. I'm gonna just go ahead and drag and drop this prototype floor in there, and as you can see, this is a floor kind of thing over here. And I'm gonna go ahead and select the FPS controller and bring it bring it up a little bit so that it's standing on the ground, just like that. And now if we play the game, if we go to the game and play the game, you will see that we will be able to look around with the mouse like this. We can jump with space, and we can also move around with WASD, and we can hold shift to run. And yeah, pretty cool. So the first person character controller is already set up pretty nicely, and we are good to go. Cool. So this is how you import the standard assets and all that, so that is good. Next thing that I have here is a Playmaker folder. So if you don't know what Playmaker is an asset available on Asset Store, which will help you to make games without writing a single line of code. So every game that you see in my channel, if I go to channel, every tutorial video that you will see in this channel will all be made with Playmaker. So I don't use coding C#, I just use Playmaker to make all of these games. So I have made GTA, I have made a whole lot of things and all that. So if you haven't seen the videos, make sure you see them. I have a whole lot of tutorial videos like GTA, and yeah, a whole lot of them. So make sure you subscribe and check them out. So if you don't have Playmaker, make sure you download it. You can buy it from Asset Store, or you can download it for free. The link will be in the description box below. So just go ahead and download this folder, and then just drag and drop this folder inside of Unity, and you will be good to go. Next up, I have an assets folder. It will also be provided to you and the link will be in the description box below. You can download this assets folder, and these folders have some weapons and FPS weapons like these. As you can see, there are hands and a gun. Again, hands and guns, and different guns like shotgun, grenade, rocket launcher, and a machine gun, and sniper, and whatnot. Alright, so I have a whole lot of things in here. Like, let me just quickly show you guys the sniper. This is the sniper, and yeah, a whole lot of things. So if you can just download that, and all these hands are also rigged. So if I just go ahead and drag that in there, there we go, and bring it up just like that. So these hands are also rigged, so yeah, they're gonna animate and do something with these guns and all that. So they're gonna interact with them. And we also have some animations. So we have a whole lot of animations, different animation for different guns. All right, so you can just go ahead and download this folder. The link will be in the description box below. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete the main camera, because we have the camera with the FPS controller. I'm gonna rename this to FPS controller instead of rigid body FPS controller. There we go, and I'm gonna call this ground. Simple as that. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and drag the FPS controller down there. Now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and go to assets, and in there we have prefabs. In the prefabs we have to go to weapons and FPS weapon, and I'm gonna go ahead and drag and drop the pistol inside of the FPS controller. So inside of the FPS controller you will see there's a main camera. Just go ahead and drag and drop any gun you want, and just drag it inside of the camera. There we go. And if I go to the game view, you will see automatically there is this gun over here. And if I play the game right now, he will do some kind of an animation with the hands, and yeah, there we go, we can see the hands, and yeah, but as you can see, we can see the cut off over here. So camera is not rendering this part onwards. Why? Because it's really close to the camera, so it's not rendering that. So we can just simply fix that by going to the main camera and going and decreasing or increasing, yeah, increasing or decreasing, sorry, I don't know, 0.3, so it's 0.3 by default, and we're gonna set it to 0.01, just like that. So now we are rendering the whole thing, as you can see, and pretty nice. So we have hands and all that. Cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and set this to 0.01. Oops, yeah, 0.01. There we go. Save that. And now if we play the game, he will do some kind of an animation with the hands, and the hands will do that and come back. Cool. Okay, so that is pretty nicely working, right? Now we have to go to the pistol, and I don't know why these scripts are over here. I'm gonna remove these scripts real quick. I don't know why they are here. There we go. And you can see there is already a animator controller on top of this guy, but we want to make our own animator controller, because this is a little too complicated, and we want to make our own animator controller. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and go to assets, right click, create a folder called FPS assets. There we go, and double click that, and in there I'm going to go ahead and say create folder pistol. In the pistol I will make a folder called animations. So as you have seen, there are a whole lot of guns and weapons, right? So there will be different folders for different weapons. For example, this one is for the pistol. If we go to the assets, and in there we have the animation folder. In the animation folder we can see weapon, and in the weapon we have animations, and in the animations we have to find the semi-automatic pistol. All right, double click that, and we have to just go ahead and drag these all animations. So all of these are animations, and then drag them inside of our pistol animations. So just go ahead and drag them inside of our pistol animations, and we are good to go now. Okay, so yeah, cool. So we have a pistol, and in the pistol animations we have all the pistol animations. For example, select, pistol put away, pistol idle, pistol move, pistol run, pistol start fire, automatic fire, end fire, reload, empty reload, dry fire, and so on, right? So we're gonna use that. Cool. So I'm gonna go to the pistol, and I'm gonna go ahead and say right click over here, create an animator controller. There we go, and I'm gonna call this pistol animator, and double click that, and you will see this window pop out. If you don't see this window, and then go to window and go to animation, and in there you will see animator, and just select that, and we will see this animator. By default it is like there is no animation in there, right? So if I select the pistol and just go ahead and drag and drop the pistol anim inside over here, just like that, and we will see if you play the game right now, nothing actually will happen. We will just see the pistol, and if I go to the scene view, the hands are just like that. Alright, so they're not animating, they're not doing anything, and yeah. Okay, now the first thing that we need to do is we need to have some kind of an animation that the hand comes out like that. Alright, so I think the animation for that is this one. Alright, pistol select. So as you can see over here, this guy is has the pistol in the hands, and he is dragging the pistol up over here. Alright, so we want this animation right here to play when the game starts. So I'm gonna go ahead and drag and drop this in here, pistol select, and if I play the game right now, you will see that he grabs the pistol just like that. So that is pretty nice, right? Next up, we want to transition from this animation to an idle animation. So we will find an idle animation in here, pistol idle, and he is just moving the pistol a little bit, I think. Yeah, he is just kind of like breathing, right? You can see. So we're gonna go ahead and drag and drop in here, idle, and we're gonna make a transition from here to there, just like that. So if I drag the animator over here so that we can see, select the pistol and play the game, you will see that first this select animation will happen, and then we are doing the idle animation just like that. Pretty cool, right? Pretty simple, pretty cool. Next up, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and say, I'm gonna just go ahead and close this guy. Okay, next up, what we want to go ahead and say, we want to make an moving animation, because right now if you play the game, you will see that even if we are moving, he is doing the same idle animation, right? Even if we are running, even if we are jumping, he is doing the same idle animation. So we don't want that. We want to go ahead and change the animations accordingly, right? So we have to find the move animation in which he does this kind of an animation. The hands are moving like that, and we're gonna just go ahead and drag the move animation in there, just like that. Now we want to go ahead and make a transition from idle to move and from move to idle, just like that. But we want to go ahead and transition from idle to move and from move to idle on certain condition. So if I select the arrow over here, we can see there are conditions slot over here, and the list is empty right now. If I go ahead and say plus sign, it says parameter does not exist, so we have to make a parameter, right? So in here you can see there is a parameter tab over here, and there's a plus sign over here, which means we can make a parameter. We can make different parameters, but I'm gonna go ahead and say float. Float is a value with points like 0.1, 0.2, or any value with decimal point. We're gonna call this one a walk magnitude. All right, walk magnitude. And when this walk magnitude is greater than 0.1, then we're gonna go to transition to move. And when this is less than 0.1, then we're gonna go ahead and come back to idle animation. All right, make sure the has exit time is false in both of these. Has exit time means this whole animation will play, and then after this whole animation is finished, then we're gonna transition from here. But that's not what we want. We're gonna just press WASD and we're gonna immediately transition from this state to this state, right? Okay, if I drag this animator controller over here and play the game right now, you will see that we are doing the idle animation. And we're gonna do that again and again and again, because the walk magnitude is 0 right now. If I set this walk magnitude to 1, you will see that he will immediately transition to move animation, right? And if I move right now, he looks pretty good, yeah. And if I set this walk magnitude back to 0, he will do the idle animation again. Alright, so that is pretty cool, right? Now the only thing that we need to do is we need to change the value of this walk magnitude parameter through a script, and that should change according to when we are moving or not. All right, so this is where playmaker comes in, or this is where coding comes in. All right, so if I go to the FPS controller right here, we are gonna go ahead and say add component and say FSM, and you will see this playmaker FSM if you correctly imported the playmaker FSM that is over here, this folder. So if you don't have that, again, if you don't have that, make sure you click the link in the description box below and download it. It's free, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and say edit, and I'm gonna go ahead and say get axis vector. Get axis vector, which means WASD by default. Horizontal vertical, which means WASD. And we're gonna store that vector into some variable called input vector. And we're gonna also store the magnitude. Magnitude is one that we need, and we're gonna go ahead and say new variable input mag for magnitude. All right, and if I go to variables, we will see the two variables that we just made. I'm gonna go ahead and select the input magnitude and set that to inspector. If I go to controls now, we will be able to see the input magnitude and its value. So if I play the game right now, you will see the input magnitude value is 0. If I go ahead and say W, it changes to 1. All right, and if I release W, it's gonna change to 0. If I go to press S, it's gonna say 1 again. And if I press A, 1 again, and D to 1 again. So as you can see, if I press WASD, its value is gonna change, right? Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and set the value of input magnitude to be equal to the walk magnitude, or whenever this value changes, it will also change this value. All right, so that is pretty simple. Go ahead and say animator float, set animator float, and go ahead and as you can see, we do not have any animator controller on the FPS controller. We have the animator controller on the pistol, right? So we're gonna go ahead and select the FPS controller and say specify the game object to the pistol, because pistol has the animator controller. And the parameter, just double click this and copy the parameter walk magnitude and paste that in here, and set the value equal to the input magnitude that we just specified over here. All right, and set this to every frame and play now. You will see, if I close this, drag the animator over here, watch this value and this value. All right, watch this value and then this value. So if I press W, you will see they are changing accordingly, right? And the animation is also working accordingly. So if I hold W, he's gonna animate, and if I release W, he's gonna animate again to idle animation. And this works for like every direction. I'm pressing WASD and it works properly, so that is pretty nice, right? Now we want to do some running, right? Because if you're running, he is doing the same animation again, but we want to make a different animation, and we also have that. If we go to pistol animations, here we have a running animation. As you can see, he is running like that. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to animator and just go ahead and simply drag and drop the running animation in here, and we're gonna go ahead and make a transition from move to run and run to move back. There we go. And we're gonna make another parameter. This time we're gonna make a boolean is actually true or false, so it's either gonna be true or either gonna be false. All right, so when running is true, run is true, and has exit time is false. All right, when run is true, we're gonna run, and when run is false, run is false, we're gonna go ahead and come back to move, right? Real simple. So now if we play the game right now, again I'm gonna go ahead and do that. There we go. And if I'm walking and set this to true, he is running now, as you can see. Cool. Pretty nice, right? So we're gonna just true and false. We're gonna just make it true and false when we hold shift or not. All right. That is also pretty simple. If we go to the FSM, there we go, and then there we go. Okay. If I go to the FSM and just close them and go ahead and say get button down. Get button down means when you hold some button, and the button which we want to go ahead and say edit project settings, and in there we have input, and in the input we have the as axes, and in the axes we have these buttons. These are actually buttons. If I go to fire 3, you can see its name is fire 3 and the positive button is left shift. Alright, so you can also make your own button, but we're gonna use the sample button that Unity provides you. So it's called fire 3, which means left shift. Alright, so just go ahead and say fire 3 instead of fire 1, which means left shift, and when we hold left shift, which means we are running, so make a new event called run, add transition run, and control click to add a new state. You can also right click and add state, and then say run, which means whenever we hold the left shift button, we're gonna go in this state. If you don't believe me, I'm gonna play the game and show you guys. So when we play the game, we are in the start state, which is this one, state 1, and if I hold shift, we're gonna go in that state. Cool. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing. So get button up this time. Get button up, you guessed it. Get button up means if we release the button, and again the same button, left shift, which means fire 3, and we're gonna go ahead and say idle and make the state to idle. There we go. So now if we hold the shift, we're gonna come in this state, and if we release the shift, we're gonna come in this state. Cool. And when we come in this state, which means running state, we have to set the set animator bool. Animator bool. And again, we don't have the animator controller on top of the FPS controller. We have to specify the game object to be the pistol, drag and drop the pistol in there, and then select the pistol and select the animator and bring it over there, and copy the, or just say run. Run is the parameter, and set this to true. Whenever we are holding shift, we want this to be true so that we are doing the animation. And I'm gonna copy this and paste this in here, so when we are in idle or in movement, we don't want this to be true, we're gonna set this to false. Save that and it's gonna properly work. If you don't believe me, I'm gonna show you guys real quick now. I'm gonna go ahead and drag the animator controller over there. So just look at this run value. So if I hold shift, this is true, and if I release shift, this is false. If I move and hold shift, he is gonna do that animation. Pretty nice. He is doing the animation pretty nicely. But I think that the running animation is little slower according to my speed. Alright, so my speed is little faster and the animation speed is little slower. So you can simply fix that by coming in here and set the by setting the run speed over here to true or 3 or whatever you want. It's a little faster now. I'm gonna set this to 0.1, no, 0.5, 1.5, sorry, 1.3 maybe, and you can tweak these values accordingly, and I think now it's good. 1.3 is now good. Pretty nicely. So the animation is working pretty nicely, right? Okay, if I come over here and go to animation, it's 0.3 and 1 and 1. Pretty nice. I'm gonna save that. Okay, now the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and say right click to do the aiming thing, right? So zoom in and do that. So how do we do that? We will find the animation somewhere over here. It is called zoom idle. Alright, it's called zoom idle. We don't need the zoom in and zoom out because Unity will automatically do the transition for us. We just need the zoom idle. So if I go to the animator and drag and drop the zoom idle in there, and yeah, put it somewhere over here. Now we should be able to get into the scope mode, even if we are in idle mode, even if we are in the move mode, or even if we are in the running state. Alright, so okay, now go ahead and select all of three and set that has exit time to false, and then we're gonna go ahead and add another parameter called bool, and it's gonna be called scope. So when scope is true, we are going to go to the scope. Alright, scope is true when scope is true, and when scope is true, we're gonna come in this scope state, scope animation. Real quick show you guys what it looks like. So if I play the game right now, the scope will be false right now. If I set it to true, he's gonna go in that animation pretty nicely, right? And he's doing the scope animation. Cool. Now we should also be able to come out of the scope, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a transition from there to move and set that has exit time to false. When scope is false, we're gonna come back to the move animation. Alright, okay, so I think it should properly work, I guess. Let me just real quick test it out. If I set the scope to true, he's gonna go to the scope. If I set the scope to false, he's gonna come back. Pretty nicely, right? Nicely working. Now the only thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and set the scope to true and false whenever we press the right click or not. Alright, so come back, say edit, and this time we are gonna go ahead and make another state over here. I'm gonna rename the state, so this will be the idle, this one will be the run, this one will be the scope. Oops, scope. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and say get mouse button, which means, yeah, get mouse button down, and the mouse button that we want is the right click, I think right click, yeah, right click. And when we press the right click, we're gonna go ahead and say new event scope. Make the transition, oops, add transition scope, and go over there. Just copy this action and paste it, oops, paste it in here, and say right click, add scope. There we go. So now whenever we press the right click, we are gonna come in this state. Also come in here and paste the same action again, and this time we're gonna go to the idle. So whenever we press the right click, when we are in the scope, we're gonna go to idle state. Oops, add transition idle, go over there. I'm gonna real quick explain it again. So get button down, get mouse button down means when we press the mouse button which we want is right click. So when we press the right click, we're gonna go to the scope state, and in the scope state, when we press the right click again, we're gonna come back to the idle state. Alright, real quick play the game and show you guys if it's working or not. Right click, we are in the scope state, and right click again, we're gonna come back. And even if we are running scope and we are in there, right? Cool. In here, the only thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and copy the set animator bool, copy that, paste it in here, and go to animator and just copy the name scope, paste the scope in here. So whenever we are in the scope state, we are setting the scope boolean to true, and copy this again, paste it in run, set it to false, paste it in idle, set it to false. Simple as that. And now you will see that it will automatically be working nicely. So we are here, we are running, we are walking and doing else stuff. Right click, we are in the scope state. We can also move, we can also run, we can right click and come back, and we can do these things. So pretty nicely working. Yeah, nice, simple as that. As you can see, it's really simple to make, right? Next thing that we need to do is we need to make a fire system. Now in order to make the fire, we have fire animation somewhere over here. Let me just see. It's called alternate single fire. Alright, that's what we want. If I go to animator and drag and drop the alternate fire in here, and I'm gonna go ahead and rename this alternate single fire to just simple fire. There we go. And this one is the one that we need to execute when we fire. Alright, so we can surely fire when we are in the idle, we are in the move, and when we are running, and of course when we are in the scope. Alright, okay, but we're gonna do scope zoom scope fire different one, because this is different fire animation, and that should be different fire animation. So let's just go ahead and make these 3 transitions from idle, move, and to run. So from idle, move, and run, we are gonna fire, and of course we're gonna come back to the idle and idle state when we have fired, or we're gonna come back to the move when we fired, and say has exit time is true. Alright, so these 3 from idle, from move, and from run should have no has exit time, but the one that comes back from the fire to move, that should have has exit time on, which means the animation will play full, then we're gonna transition from fire to move. Alright, cool. Now again we're gonna go ahead and make another parameter. This time we're gonna go ahead and say trigger. Alright, trigger. Trigger means, yeah, like a gun trigger. It's gonna just, it's not true and false, it's just true, and when trigger is triggered, we're gonna play that animation. So this time it's gonna be fire. So when fire trigger is on, when fire, we're gonna just, it does not has any condition. Alright, so true and false, it does not has any condition, it is just there. So when fire, fire, and then fire, there we go. Cool. If I select the animator over here and drag it there and play it, and if I hit the fire trigger, he's gonna do that animation. Okay, he is doing a little weird animation because I think it is coming back to the move, so I'm gonna just go ahead and place it to the idle and set it to fire. There we go. Now he's doing nice fire animation. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the FPS controller, say edit, and this time I'm going to go ahead and make another state somewhere over here. I'm going to call this state fire, and we're going to come back in here and say get mouse button down, copy that, paste it in here, and this time we're going to say left click, which is a click for fire, and we're going to make a new event called fire and add a transition fire and put it in there. So copy this guy and then paste it in here also, add transition fire and put that fire in here just like that. I think I should select the fire and put it over here somewhere, and in here we're gonna go ahead and say set animator bool. We can use animator bool to trigger the trigger in here, so yeah, it works. Of course, specify the game object to be the pistol. Alright, and just copy the trigger name and paste that trigger name in here and set this to value to true and say next frame event, say finished, and there we go. Alright, which means when we're gonna come in here and say set the bool to true and then come back. Alright, let me just play the game and see if it's working or not. There we go. Whenever we click, he does that animation. So there we go, when we press, he does that animation. Looks pretty good to me, and we can also of course run around, walk around and do that stuff, and we can of course shoot. Pretty nice, right? Okay, now he is doing the animation, however we want some kind of a fire thing to happen, right? So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and real quick make a target. So let's go ahead and say create 3D game object and a capsule, reset its transform, so that's right in the center, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring it somewhere over here, move it up a little bit just like that, and this will be our target. Alright, so we have to shoot this guy, and we have to detect whether or not it's working or not, right? What we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and say add a rigid body to it, just like that, and we have to bring it somewhat like this and move it up. Okay, so now if I go ahead and say play the game now, so as you can see he is stuck in the air just like that, and when we shoot it like this, when we shoot him, he should fall down like that. That will tell us that he is shot. So this will be the way to detect it. So I'm setting it to is kinematic, which means he is not gonna fall, and when is kinematic is false, he's gonna fall down just like that. So now first thing that we need to do is we need to go to the tag, and first thing, let's say target, rename it to target, and say tag, and add another tag and call this one enemy, just like that, and go to the target and set the tag to enemy. So this is our enemy right here with the tag enemy. I'm gonna go to the FPS controller and a pistol. Go to the go to the FPS controller and say FSM, and when in the fire, what we want to do is we don't want to go back to there, just like that. We have to go ahead and say raycast, and we're gonna raycast. Raycast is actually a ray or laser which we're gonna shoot from the pistol, or I'm thinking right now that we should not cast the ray from the pistol. We should cast the ray from center of the camera. That will be a little better, right? Let's just check that out. So go ahead and select the main camera and select an empty game object, just like that, and bring that little away from the camera in the Z axis, and I'm gonna set this to 1.5x, 1.1. Yeah, 1 will be good. And yeah, here it is, just like that. So this is the camera over here, and in the camera we have that blob thingy over here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and say raycast from a game object and specify the game object to be that game object, that empty game object. Drag and drop it in here, and I'm gonna call this raycaster. There we go. This will cast the ray, and we want the ray to be casted in the Z axis, which is this one. So from direction in the Z, and I think it should be -1 because the Z is in this direction and we want to cast the ray in that direction, right? So yeah, blue is the Z one and Z is pointing in that way, so we have to shoot it in that way. So I think it should be -1, but we can fix it later on. And in order to see the ray, we have to say debug and set the color to something that we can see. So I'm gonna debug and say red. Okay, play the game and see. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and say bam and Control Shift P, and as you can see, this is the ray, and it should not be -1, it should be +1. Yeah, my bad. Okay, go to scene. Okay, what's happening? Go to the FPS controller again, and instead of -1 I have to set it to 1. Play the game and there we go. Control Shift P to pause the game, and there we go. Okay, so as you can see, he is shooting the ray in that direction pretty nicely, and it is also colliding with this capsule. Okay, so it's working properly, I think. So now what we need to do is we need to come back to the FPS controller and say edit, and this time what we're gonna do is we have to detect whether or not this ray is hitting something. If it is hitting something, then we have to check which object it is hitting. So we're gonna go ahead and say hit event to new event and say test, which means we're gonna test the game object that we just hit, and make a new state over here, just like that. And we have to go ahead and store the game object that we just hit. So store hit object, we're gonna store that to test obj. The test object that any object that we just hit with the raycast is gonna be stored in this variable. And in here we're gonna say compare tag, game object compare tag. The game object that we just hit is called test game object, and we're gonna compare the tag with enemy. So whichever thing that we just hit, if it is the enemy, then if it is true, if it is enemy, then we're gonna go ahead and say new event kill. If it is not the enemy, if it's false, then we're gonna go ahead and say I think come back to idle. That will be good. So come back to the idle. Add transition kill and add transition idle. If it is not the enemy, then come back to the idle. If it is enemy, then kill the enemy. And in this case we have to just set the is kinematic to true, which is this one, is kinematic to false. So we're gonna go ahead and just drag this in here. Set property is kinematic, where is it? where is it? It's kinematic, and set it to false, just like that. And then say finished and come over here, say next frame event, finished. I'm again gonna explain this, what is all happening over here, but let me just quickly see if it is working or not. So here we are, we can move around, and if I shoot this guy, he is lying down over there, which means it is properly working. Of course we do not have any feedback right now that what just happened and all that, but that guy just fall down. How did that happen, and why did that just happen? Let me just real quick explain what is happening. So whenever we press the right click, which is fire button, we're gonna come in this state, and in here we're gonna play the animation of firing, and then we are gonna raycast. Raycast is a laser, and we're gonna cast that laser from a game object which is right in front of the camera. There we go, and it's gonna cast the laser in front just like that in 100 meters. All right, and whenever that raycast will hit something, so we're gonna come in this state, and in this state we're gonna test the game object that we just hit. In this case we're gonna hit this capsule over here. So we're gonna test whether or not the game object that we just hit has the tag enemy. We have the target over here, and it has the tag enemy that we just made over here. If the game object has the tag enemy, then we're gonna go ahead and kill it. And in the killing state, what we have is we have the set property of the tag, so we just dragged and dropped the rigid body in there, and we have to say is kinematic, which is over here, and set this to false. When the is kinematic is false, he is gonna just fall, which will tell us that he just died. And we're gonna say next frame event, come back to the idle state. Alright, simple as that. And again, if it is not the enemy, if it's something else, then we are gonna go ahead and come back to the idle again. So this is how it is working, and it is properly working. And the next thing is that if I am in the scope and it's not gonna I'm clicking right now, but it's not working, right? But if I come over here and click now, he is gonna kill that. So if I go to the FPS controller, say edit, and just quickly come over here and say get button down, copy that and paste that in the scope, and right click, say add transition, fire, and just real quick do that. That will actually work. Now if I come in the scope and kill him, he is gonna just die like that. Pretty nice, right? Awesome. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to have some kind of a crosshair that tells us that where we are aiming right now, right? So how do we do that? Well, we have to go ahead and say right click, create a UI canvas, and in the canvas we have to say image. So UI image, and as you can see right now we have an image right in the center of the screen. We have to go to the scene and press F, and this is the image that we are seeing. Select the canvas, and we have to say screen constant. Instead of constant pixel size, we have to say screen scale with screen size, and say match with height. Okay, and if I go to the game now, we can see that we can go ahead and make this like a crosshair. So I'm gonna go ahead and decrease it something like this. So as you can see, it is now like that. I'm gonna make it a little more smaller and more smaller, just like that. Cool. And then we can just duplicate it and do it like this, and it is a ready-made done. Take both of them and say that, and there we go. It looks pretty good to me. And you can of course find these guys in Google. You can search for Crosshair PNG, and you can find one of them. You can find one that you want, but right now I don't have much time, so I'm gonna just go with that. Make sure it is right in center of the screen. Alright, so it's right in center. It should be really in center. Okay, otherwise it's not gonna work, because the raycast is casting right from the center of the camera, and this should also be in the center, so it will the raycast will pass through this, which means you have the accurate aim. Right now, in order to check whether or not this crosshair is accurate or not, what we have to do is we have to go to the FPS controller and say edit, and just go ahead and say hit event to none. Alright, and which means it's gonna stay in this state. Cool. Say game and put this game over here, and I'm gonna go ahead and real quick make another game object, and it's gonna be a cube. So cube, bring this cube back over there and make it really small, just like that, and there it is. So we can barely see it right there, right? And I'm gonna come over here and play the game and aim at the cube just over there, and I think it's properly aimed right there. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay, and I'm gonna click now and Control Shift P, Control Space to get out. And as you can see, this is the raycast that we are seeing right here, and it is passing right through this cube that we just aimed over here. Alright, so which means it is properly working. As you can see, it is right passing through this cube, and yeah, so as you can see, the accurately aim is properly aimed right there. So if the raycast is not passing through this cube, if you have aimed correctly on that cube with this crosshair, that means you don't this cross is not in the center of the screen. So make sure it is right in center of the screen, and then you will be good to go. Next thing that I just found out is that when we zoom in, this crosshair is still there. That looks pretty awkward right now. But the thing is that is really good that the middle of the gun, that is the actual aiming thing, is right in center of the screen. That coincides with this crosshair. That is pretty nice. I love it. So that, which means that this aiming sight is already pretty perfect. So if I just go ahead and do that, it is gonna accurately kill that guy. So that's good. But also we have to disable this crosshair. So how do we do that? It should be pretty simple. We have to come out and say FPS Controller, say edit the FSM. In here what we have to do is we have to go ahead and say, in the canvas we have two images. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and say right click, create an empty game object inside of one of these images, and then take both of these images and put that in the game object. I'm gonna call this game object Crosshair. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and enable and disable this crosshair. If I go ahead and say enable and disable that, so as you can see it is enabling and disabling. That is what we have to do. I'm gonna go ahead and say game object, no, activate game object, sorry, activate game object, specify the game object to be the crosshair, specify the game object, drag the crosshair in there, set it to true. Alright, so it is activated. Copy this guy, paste this guy in here, activate it, and when we are in the scope we have to paste it in there and say deactivate. That is it. So now if I play the game, you will see that when we scope, or when we go in the scope, that is deactivated, and then I come out of the scope, it is activated. I'm gonna run over here in the edge, on the edge, and zoom in and kill him. There we go, he is dead, nicely dead. And of course we can interact with the rigid body physics things, because this FPS thing is also rigid. Oh, I'm falling, no. So yeah, that is it. That is how you make a FPS game. Of course this is not the last video on the FPS. This is only the first tutorial video on how to make an FPS game, kind of like Counter-Strike, in which we just made a pistol. In the next video we will make a health system, because we have a pistol, we cannot kill someone with just a one bullet. So we'll make a health system or damage system with a pistol. So pistol will have less damage, then we will have different guns. We can switch between the guns, and the different guns will have different damage. And then we will also add a sniper rifle, and lastly we will also add a real enemy, so which we can kill, and then we can also kill him with a headshot and all that. So we will make lots of cool things. So yeah, make sure you see the video, the link, I will make that. So if you don't want to miss these videos, make sure you subscribe to my channel. So this is it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, be cool.